Dear siblings, dear Ty.
Poco.
¿Sí? ¿Se escucha mejor? Can you hear me now? Okay.
Querida Sangha,
Dear Sangha,
mi corazón late muy fuerte.
my heart is beating very strongly,
Oficialmente,
but officially,
la primera vez que
this
tengo
is
la oportunidad
the
de
first time that I will
saludar,
have the opportunity to offer you a chat. So I feel very honored,
me gustaría expresarle mi
and I'd
gratitud
like to
al
express
hermano
my gratitude to my
Gracias
brother
a él por
Faplu,
la invitación.
and it's thanks to him that I have this opportunity today.
Gracias a mis hermanos y hermanas
I
en
really
Deer
like to
Park que
thank
aceptaron
all my
la
brothers and
propuesta
sisters
de
here in
Faplu.
Deer Park who accepted this proposal of Tai Faplu.
Me gustaría hablar
I would like to start this speech
en primer lugar.
by remembering Tai in first place.
Sí, se escucha mejor.
Okay, I think we're... Can you hear me now?
Bueno,
Okay,
decía que
I was saying
me gustaría dedicar la
I would
charla
like to
del día de hoy
dedicate this
Tai,
talk today to Tai,
dedicarla también
dedicate it
a mis papás,
also to my parents,
a mi mamá que
to
es
my
un
mother,
ángel en mi
who
vida, que
is an
siempre me
angel in my
apoya en
life, who
todo
has
lo que hago,
always
y
helped
que
and supported
seguramente
me
me
in
está
everything that
viendo
I do,
en
and
este
and
momento.
surely she's watching
Hola,
right
mami.
now. Hi, Mom.
Y a mis hermanos
To
cósmicos, mis hermanos
my cosmic
espirituales,
brothers, my
dentro y fuera
family,
del
spiritual
monasterio.
family here in the monastery and
Y
beyond.
muy especialmente
And very
me gustaría
especially,
dedicar esta
I'd like to dedicate
charla del día de hoy
this talk
a mi maestro, al gran maestro
to my
que yo he
teacher,
tenido
my
en mi
great
vida,
teacher, the most greatest teacher that
que
I've
se
had in my
llama
life,
licenciado José Hugo Martínez Ortiz.
Licenciado.
Él fue mi maestro cuando yo estudié
He
en la
was my
Facultad de Derecho
teacher
en México.
when I was studying law in
Y es
Mexico
gracias a
City.
él que yo orienté mi vida
And it's because
en
of
este
him
camino,
that I
en esta
oriented my
dirección.
life in this direction, in this
El día de hoy por la
path.
mañana,
So today,
después de la
in this
meditación,
morning, after the meditation,
escuchamos un texto
we heard a
y en
text.
este texto decía una
And in that
frase,
text it said,
no tener sentido en la vida
to
es el
not have a
sufrimiento
sense of
más grande.
direction is
Y yo siento
the
que
greatest
es
suffering.
gracias a mi maestro
I believe
que yo
that it's
pude
because of my
darle un
teacher
sentido a mi
that I
vida.
was able to give a direction to
Y
my life.
gracias a su enseñanza y
Thanks to
gracias
his
a su
teaching,
compañía y
thanks
su
to his
interacción,
companionship and
que
his
yo pude
interaction,
orientar mi vida
that I
en
was
la
able to
dirección
orient my life in a
de la
direction
búsqueda de la verdad,
searching for the
dirección
truth,
de la
in the
búsqueda de
direction
libertad.
of searching for freedom.
Y mi maestro me enseñó a pensar por
My
mí mismo.
teacher showed me how to think for myself.
Entonces es muy especial para mí
So it's very
poder
special
estar aquí el
to
día de
be
hoy.
able to be here
Mi
today.
maestro ya
My
falleció,
teacher, has
pero su
passed already,
esencia sigue viva en mí.
but his essence continues
En
in
este
me.
momento, aquí y ahora, mi
In this
maestro
moment,
me acompaña.
here my teachers
Y mi gratitud
accompany me.
hacia mi maestro también es
My
gratitud hacia Tai,
gratefulness is towards also
porque
Tai,
la enseñanza de mi
because
maestro y la enseñanza de Tai
the teachings
en
of my teacher
esencia son
and
la
of
misma
Tai
cosa, no
are in
están
essence the
separadas.
same. They're not separate.
Entonces, para mí, la mejor manera
So
de
for me,
honrar a mi
the best
maestro
way to honor my teachers
en este momento,
in
con
this
motivo
moment,
de la celebración
with the
del Día
motivation
de los Muertos,
and the
que es
theme
dentro
of
de
the
2
Day of the
días,
Dead, which will happen in a few days,
es permitir que mi maestro esté vivo
is to
en
allow
mí
my teacher to
y
be
que se
alive within
manifieste a
me
través
and
de
that
mí.
he manifests through me.
Entonces nosotros les pedimos a
So
las
today
personas
we ask
que
people,
participan, que vinieron a este
everyone
día de la
here who
conciencia,
come to this
que
mindfulness day,
trajeran
that we
fotografías
ask
de
them
sus
to
seres
come
queridos
with
que
their
hayan
photos
fallecido
of their loved ones who have
para
passed
ponerlas
away,
en el altar
so that
de
we
muertos
can
que
put them
hicimos.
at the altar of the
Y
dead
yo traje
that we've
una
created.
fotografía de mi maestro que me
I've brought a
gustaría
picture
mucho
of
poner
my
en el
teacher
altar.
that I would like to put on the altar.
No sé si por ahí
I don't know if
se
you
puede
can
ver.
see it.
Él es mi maestro,
He
el
is my
licenciado
teacher,
José Hugo Martínez,
Jose Hugo
el
Martinez,
gran maestro
the
de mi
great
vida.
teacher in my life.
Y bueno, este es un
And
poco
so
el espíritu
this
de
is a
la
little bit of
celebración
the
del Día de los
spirit
Muertos
of
en
the
México.
day, of the Day of the Dead.
Invitar a nuestros seres
We
queridos
invite
que hayan
our loved
fallecido
ones, those who have
a que
passed
estén
away,
presentes
to
con
become
nosotros.
present again in our lives
Entonces yo
with
creo
us.
que es una
I
oportunidad
believe
para
that
todos
this is an
nosotros
opportunity for all of us
de conmemorar y
to
de
remember
invitar a
and to
nuestros seres
invite
queridos
our loved
a que
ones
estén
to
dentro de
come here,
nosotros
to
y que se
become
manifiesten
within
a
us,
través de nosotros.
and to manifest through us.
Y bueno, para iniciar con esta charla,
To begin this talk,
a mí me gustaría mucho hacer énfasis
I would like to
en una
emphasize
de las prácticas básicas
one of
que
the
tenemos
basic
en Plum
practices that we
Village,
have here in Plum Village.
que consiste en parar
This basically consists in
y
stopping
regresar a uno
and
mismo
coming
y
back to
contemplar.
oneself to experience,
Nosotros en la
to
tradición de
contemplate
Plum Village
ourselves.
tenemos un
Here
buen amigo
in Plum
que nos
Village,
invita con
we have
frecuencia
a very good
a regresar
friend
al
that
momento
we're
presente,
always asking to come
a
back to the
parar
present
lo que
moment,
estamos haciendo,
to stop what we're doing,
regresar a
to
nosotros
come
mismos
back
a
to
través de
ourselves,
nuestra respiración
to come back to our
y
breathing,
contemplar qué está
and
sucediendo
to
dentro de
become
mí
aware of what
y
is
en
happening
torno a mí.
within me and within my
Y
environment.
ustedes van a ver cada vez que nosotros
And all of
escuchamos
you are going to
la
see that
campana
every
en el
time
monasterio,
we hear a bell
es
in the
un
monastery,
recordatorio, es
it's
un
a
momento para
reminder
nosotros de
for
detener
all of us to
cualquier cosa
stop
que estemos
whatever we're
haciendo.
doing.
Si estamos caminando,
So if we're
si estamos
walking,
comiendo,
or
o
if
si
we're
estamos
eating,
teniendo una
or we're
conversación,
having a conversation,
paramos,
we
nos
stop,
detenemos,
we stop for a moment,
respiramos
we
y
breathe,
contemplamos
and
profundamente.
we become aware of that moment.
Y la historia que les quería compartir el
And
día
the
de
story
hoy
that I'd like to
está
share with all of you today
ligada a esta
is linked to
práctica de
this
parar
practice of
y
stopping
contemplar profundamente.
and resting.
Y es para mí una oportunidad de compartir con todos
This is an
ustedes
opportunity for me to share with all of
una de
you
las experiencias
one of
más
the
significativas que yo he
experiences
vivido
most
en mi vida
important and that
monástica
I
en
have
Plum Village.
experienced in this monastic tradition of Plum Village.
Hace más o menos unos
More or
3
less
años
3 years ago,
tuve la oportunidad de conocer
I had
a
the
los
opportunity
abuelitos de uno de mis
to get to
hermanos
know
monjes.
the grandparents of one of
Mi
my
hermano
brothers,
es francés
monastic.
y sus abuelitos
My
son
brother is
franceses
French and his
y
grandparents are
vinieron a
French,
visitar
and they came to
a su
visit him.
nieto. Y ellos querían salir a comer fuera
They
del
wanted to go to
monasterio.
eat outside of the
Y mi
monastery,
hermano me invitó a comer
and my
con su
brother
familia.
invited
No
me to
solo
come
eran
with
sus
him
abuelitos,
to
eran sus
eat with
tíos.
his grandparents, his uncles, his mother.
Y fui a comer con ellos
I went to eat with
y
them.
me llamó mucho la atención
And
que
it
lo
really drew
primero
my
que me
attention that
dijo
the
su
very
abuelito,
first thing that his
así
grandmother told me,
inmediatamente cuando me vio, me
the
dijo,
first moment that she saw me,
mire señor,
she said,
por
"Look,
favor,
look here.
no
Okay,
me
don't.
vaya a tratar de convencer
You're not going to try
de
to
lo que sea
convince
que
me
ustedes hagan
that
aquí
whatever you're
en este
doing,
lugar.
whatever you monks
Yo
do,
no
you don't have
creo
to
en
convince me.
nada.
I
¿Sí?
don't believe
¿Me
in any of
escuchó?
it.
En
Yeah,
nada.
nothing. You can't convince me."
Y yo desde ahí a
And I
mí
said,
me
"Okay,
cayó muy
no,
bien
it's good, no problem."
porque yo tengo un
I really
espíritu
liked her
similar.
because I kind of have the same spirit.
Los abuelitos de mi
The
hermano
grandmothers
son
of my brother, the
muy
grandmother of my brother,
escépticos y se sienten
they
orgullosos de
were
ser
very,
escépticos, de no creer en las cosas. Y yo
they're
tampoco
very
creo, yo
skeptic
necesito
of
evidencia y necesito
I'm
experiencia
kind of like that
directa
too.
de
I
las
also
cosas
like
para
to
poder
have
creer
evidence.
en
I'd
ellas.
like to have
Y en este
reasoning
sentido yo
behind my
conecté
beliefs.
muy
And
bien
so I
con
connected really well with
con los
this
abuelitos de
skeptic
mi
attitude
hermano.
with the grandparents
En
of my brother.
Francia a los abuelitos les
In
dicen
France,
papi
the
y
you call
mami,
your grandparents papi
así con
and
el acento
mami,
en la
papi,
i,
mami,
papi y
papi,
mami.
and mami.
Y yo los adopté como si
And
fueran mis
so I kind of
propios
adopted them as
abuelitos.
my own
Para mí, yo
grandparents.
les digo papi y
So I
mami.
call them papi and mami.
Y una cosa muy especial
And so a very special
es que
thing
ellos no tenían
was that
ningún respeto especial
they didn't
hacia mi
really
persona
have
por el hecho
any
de que yo soy
special
monje.
respect towards me as a
Ellos a
monk.
mí me veían como si yo fuera cualquier
They
otra
kind of looked at
persona.
me as like anybody
Y yo
else.
creo que esto contribuyó mucho
And so that
para que hayamos
contributed
tenido una
to
conexión
creating a
muy
connection
profunda.
between us.
Además que a mí me conmovió mucho
And it also moved me very
ver
much
cómo
to see
el abuelito de mi hermano
how
a sus
my
85
brother's
años de
grandmother,
edad,
at like
conserva
85
una
years old,
vitalidad y un buen humor
reserved this kind
y
of
una energía
strength of vitality
que
and
yo
a
dije,
sense of
yo quiero
humor.
llegar a los
And
85
And I
años
thought to
con
myself,
esa
wow, I really want to
vitalidad.
be able to have that
¿Cómo se
that
le
kind
hace?
of mentality, that
Y empecé a
vitality.
preguntarle muchas
So I
cosas
started
sobre
asking
su
her
vida,
many
sobre
questions
sus
about her
hábitos,
life,
cómo
about
trabajaba,
her
qué
work
comía,
habits, what did she
qué tipo de
eat,
ejercicio
what kind of
hacía
exercise did she do.
para a ver si yo también
I
puedo
wanted to
llegar
see if I
a
could
los
do any of these
85
things, so
años
maybe I could
así
get to
de
85 years
con
of
esa
age
energía.
and have that same energy.
Y él me compartió con mucha
And
generosidad
so they shared
muchas
with me
cosas sobre
many
su vida
things
y
about
nos
their lives.
empezamos a llevar muy bien.
And we got along really well.
Y en cierto momento durante la
But
conversación,
in one moment
el abuelito
during
de
the
mi hermano
conversation,
me
my
decía,
brother's grandmother,
bueno, ¿y
she
tú
said to me,
de dónde eres?
and
Te
you,
noto
like,
un
where are you
acento
from?
extraño.
I kind
¿De
of
dónde
noticed
eres?
a
Porque
strange accent,
estábamos hablando en francés.
and so because we were speaking in French,
Y yo,
and
pues, precisamente
so
por
I
mi mala
responded
pronunciación en
because of
francés
my
y
bad
por no
French
acordarme
pronunciation
cómo decir esa
and not
palabra,
remember how to say
yo le
certain
dije,
words.
yo soy mexicano.
I say, je suis mexicain.
Y el abuelito dijo, no,
And
no,
the
a ver,
grandmother and said,
espérame.
wait a
Y
second,
dice
wait,
toda la
wait,
familia, un momento
wait,
todos,
just
por
a
favor,
second,
que voy a
just a
hacer una
second.
broma.
I'd like to say
Y
a
dice,
joke here.
yo conozco muchos
I know
mexicanos. Dice,
many
je connais beaucoup de
Mexicans,
Mexicains en
Mexica,
francés,
I've been to
pero
Mexico,
nunca había conocido un
but I've
mexicano.
never met a Mexican.
Entonces, yo no entendí.
I didn't
Yo no
understand.
entendí qué
I
había dicho.
didn't
Pero
understand
noté
what
que
I
toda
had
la
said,
familia
but
se
everybody
quedaron serios y nadie
was
dijo
very
nada y que
serious and
dijeron,
didn't say anything.
ya, a los monjes hay que
Oh,
respetarlos.
and then some of them said,
Y
wait, this,
entonces
you
mi
have to
hermano
respect the
me
monks.
explicó
And then the brother
que la palabra mec en francés
explained that
significa
the word
como un
mec
muchacho,
in French
un
means
chavo,
like a very
decimos en
small,
México, en el norte
a young
decimos un
man,
morro.
a young boy.
Y la otra parte no la puedo traducir porque
And
es
the other word I can't really
una
say
palabra
because that's
altisonante,
not really a good
pero
word.
básicamente significa nunca había conocido
Basically,
a un
it's
muchacho tan tonto.
a word that says that she'd never
Entonces,
met someone
cuando
who
yo
was that
entendí
slow.
de qué se trataba,
And when I
si
understood
bien
what
sus
I had said,
palabras no eran amables,
even though her
yo
words
pude ver
weren't
que su
so
intención
lovely,
era muy amable
her
y era un
intention
gesto
was
de
very
amistad.
kind, and it
Así
was a
que no me
gesture of
sentí
friendship.
ofendido,
I didn't feel
me
offended.
sentía insultado.
I didn't feel like it was an insult.
Y en cierto momento,
But in
durante la
some moment during
conversación,
the conversation,
yo le pregunté, oye, abuelito,
I asked her, I said, oh yeah,
si yo fuera tu nieto,
if
¿qué
I was your
consejo me
grandchild,
darías?
what
Dame un
advice would you give
si
me?
yo fuera
You
tu
know,
nieto.
try to think of me like your grandson.
Y rápidamente me dice,
And so he said,
bueno, ¿tu papá todavía vive?
okay, your father is still alive? And I said,
Habla
yeah.
con tu papá.
Talk
Es
to your
muy
father.
importante
It's
que
very
hables
important
con tu papá.
that you talk to your father.
Mira, yo perdí a mi papá
I lost
cuando
my
yo era
father
joven
when I was very
y
young,
me quedé con muchas ganas de preguntarle muchas
and I had
cosas
so much desire to be able to
sobre
ask him
sus
questions
orígenes,
to ask him about his origins, about my ancestors. There were so many situations in my life in which I would have really loved to have the advice of my father, but I didn't have that. And so you have your father, so please talk to your father. It's very important that you talk to your father. And he told me with such energy and such intensity. So the first thing I did when I got back, or I said I would do when I got back to Plum Village, was to talk to my father. And I did. And I told him, I had just met someone, French, who had much wisdom and told me this advice to talk to my father. So I wanted to talk to you and to tell you that your advice is really important to me. And I'm very sure that my father was very content to hear that. And over that telephone conversation with my father, he shared with me that he felt worried about me, or worried about himself. He had an upcoming surgery. He was going to have a surgery in his spinal cord. And my father, in that moment, who had about 83 years old, so he was worried. He didn't know if he was going to survive the operation. And so I told him, I said, look, in that community, it's very important to help each other, to take care of our parents, to honor our parents. In this brotherhood, in this siblinghood, it's very important. So if you tell me that you need me, I will get on a plane and I'll be in Mexico tomorrow to help you. And he says, don't worry, son. I think for the moment, I think it's good. If I see that I'm getting into problems, but right now it's not important. It's not necessary. And when I finished my conversation with my father, I also was thinking about this. It was it was a mindfulness bell for me to stop and to reflect, to ask myself, am I ready to say goodbye to my father? It's possible that my father doesn't survive this operation. So if that happens, I'm going to perhaps have a regret, or will I have a regret? That I wish I had said, or something that I never asked him. So to reflect on this, I felt peace in my heart. Because in certain moments in my life, I took time to heal and to nourish my relationship with my father. Many times, for much time, my relationship with my father was difficult. I didn't understand him. I saw him kind of like a tyrant or a dictator. And this conflict that I had within myself, it came to a point that I understood that I was hurting myself. I was destroying myself inside. And I realized that it was important to heal this part of myself. And really, I wanted to understand, why is my father like he is? So I started putting time into this question. Started to make time to reflect on the conditions of my father's life. Where was he born? What kind of education did he receive? What kind of difficulties did he encounter in his life? What kind of suffering did he have?
Y cuando fui capaz
So
de
when I was
ver,
able to
de
see,
contemplar
to reflect
profundamente
very
en todas
deeply
estas
on
condiciones
all of these
sufrimiento de mi
conditions of
padre,
suffering of my father,
me di cuenta que mi enojo y mi
I
conflicto
realized
se
that all of my
desvaneció,
anger and any
ya
conflict, it
no
just
estaba
disappeared. It
ahí.
just wasn't there.
Y lo único que había
And the only
era
thing
gratitud,
was gratitude.
porque podía ver ahora sí
Because now I
que
could
mi papá
see
había trabajado
that my
muy
father
duro
had
toda su
worked
vida
so hard
para
all of
sacar
his life
adelante
in
a su
order to
familia.
bring his family
Y mucho
forward, to
tiempo
help
yo
them
eso
and
no lo
support them. But
no lo
for a
podía
long
ver.
time, I hadn't been able to see.
Entonces, todo esto yo lo hice antes
So I
de
did
hacerme
this
monje y
before
antes
I had
de
become a monk,
conocer la meditación y el
before
budismo.
I had encountered
Digamos,
Buddhism.
esto lo descubrí por mi propia
I
cuenta,
kind of discovered
el
this
poder de la
on my own,
comprensión.
this power of
Pero
understanding.
hubo un momento muy importante en mi vida.
But a
Una de
very
esas
important
cosas
moment
que
in my life,
yo sí
one of
no
those
quería
things that
morir sin haber
I
hecho
didn't want
eso.
to die without having done it.
Y esto es, yo quería tomarme un momento para
And
expresarle
that
mi
was that I
gratitud
wanted to take a
a mi papá.
moment to express my gratitude to my father.
Yo antes de esto, yo ya había cambiado mi
Before
actitud hacia él.
this, I had already changed my
Ya
attitude
en
towards
lugar de
him.
responder, de reaccionar a tal
Instead
vez
of
a su mal humor
responding
o a su
to
enojo,
his
yo ya
bad
podía
humors
ver
or
que ese tipo
anger,
de acciones
I could
eran
start
una
seeing that
expresión,
his
una
actions were a
manifestación de su
manifestation
sufrimiento,
of his suffering.
que él nunca tuvo a
That
nadie que
he
le
never had
enseñara
anyone that
cómo
could
tomar
teach
cuidado
him
de sus
how to
emociones.
take care of his emotions.
Yo sí tuve esa oportunidad.
I did have that
Entonces,
opportunity.
yo podía estar ahí
And
y
so I
no
could be there with him
reaccionar,
and
no
not
responder
react
ante ciertas palabras o
to
ciertas
his
acciones
hurtful
y más
words
bien
or
preguntarme,
actions. But instead,
¿cómo
I
lo
could
puedo
ask the
ayudar?
question, how can I
Mi
help?
papá está sufriendo.
My
¿Cómo lo
father
puedo
is
ayudar?
suffering. How can I help?
Y el simple hecho de no
The
reaccionar
simple
es
act of
algo
not
que
reacting,
ya ayudaba
that's
mucho.
already something that
Ayudó.
really helps. It helps so much.
Y cuando yo decidí hacerme monje,
So when I decided I wanted
pues
to
a mi
be a monk,
papá no le gustó
my
para
father
nada
didn't
la
like it at
idea.
all.
Y un día se sentó
And
conmigo
one day he sat me down
y me dijo, tengo que decirte
and he said, I
muchas
got to tell
cosas.
you many things.
Y me empezó a dar una por una
So one by one,
todas las razones
he started giving me all
por las
these reasons
cuales la decisión de
why
convertirse en
the
monje
decision to become
era
a
una
monk
pésima
was
decisión.
the worst thing I could possibly do.
Y yo al principio hubo un
At the
momento en el que
beginning,
estuve a
there was
punto
this
de
moment
interrumpirlo,
where I wanted to
porque
interrupt
vi
him so much. I saw
sus palabras estaban
that his words
llenas de lo
were
que yo veía como una percepción errónea.
that they
Y
were full.
estuve
I
a
had this
punto de
kind of wrong
interrumpirlo.
perception, or I saw
Bueno,
all of
en
his
ese
words
momento
full
me
of wrong
acordé
perceptions, but I wanted to interrupt
y
him, but I
regresé
didn't.
a mi
I
respiración
remembered to come back to my breath,
y tuve que practicar la escucha profunda.
and I had to really practice deep listening.
En la tradición de Plum Village
In the
practicamos
tradition of Plum
la
Village,
escucha profunda,
we have this practice
que
called
se
deep
trata de
listening,
escuchar
and
no para corregir
it's basically listening,
la
not to
percepción de las
correct
otras
the
personas,
perceptions of
para
others,
juzgar lo que
or in
están
order to
diciendo,
judge them,
pero
judge what they
simple
are
y
saying,
sencillamente
but simply
escuchamos
to listen
para darle a la persona
and
la
to give
oportunidad
them the
de que
opportunity
vacíe su corazón,
to
de que
empty
se
out
sienta escuchado
what their heart
o
needs to
escuchada.
say, to feel listened
Y en
to.
ese momento en el que yo pude
And in that
detenerme,
moment, when I could stop
respirar y
and then
contemplar,
breathe and then
pude
reflect,
ofrecerle a mi
then I
papá
could offer to
esa
my
escucha
father
profunda
this
que él
deep listening
necesitaba.
practice, which is what he needed.
Y me di cuenta que
And I
todas las
realized
cosas que me estaba diciendo,
that all of the things that
en
he
el
was
fondo es
saying,
porque él se preocupa
at
por mí
the
y quiere lo
back of
mejor
that,
para mí.
is that he wanted the best for me.
Eso es una bendición en la
It's a
vida.
blessing to have that in life.
Entonces, empecé a ver esto como una
And so I
oportunidad,
saw this as an opportunity,
un momento especial
a
para
moment that
poder
was very
expresarle
special
mi
in
gratitud
which I
a
could
mi papá.
express my gratitude towards my father.
En el budismo
In
hay una
Buddhism,
historia que me
there's
gusta
this
mucho,
story that I
que
like
es
very
cuando
much.
Siddhartha,
When
el
Siddhartha,
Buda,
the Buddha,
se sienta un día debajo del
he
árbol
sits down underneath a
y
tree
dice, no me voy a
and he says,
levantar de
I'm not
aquí
going to get up from
hasta que
here
alcance la
until I
iluminación.
achieve enlightenment.
Y Mara,
And Mara,
que Mara un poco
Mara's kind
de
of
manera
like,
muy breve es
in a short
algo así
form,
como
it's
la
kind of like
personificación
the
de nuestros
personification
pensamientos
of
negativos.
our negative thoughts.
Y Mara se le
So
aparece
Mara
a
appears
Siddhartha
to Siddhartha
y lo empieza a atacar con
and he starts
muchas
to attack
flechas.
him with many
Y en
arrows.
su meditación,
And inside his
Siddhartha
meditation,
fue capaz de
Siddhartha was
transformar
able to
esas flechas
transform
en
those
flores.
arrows into flowers.
Pues me gusta mucho esa
I
historia
really
porque
like this
cuando yo
story
estaba escuchando a mi
because when I
papá,
was listening
y
to
mi
my
papá me
father,
decía todas
and
las
my
razones por
father
las
was
cuales
saying all of these
hacerse monje
reasons
es
why
una
being a
pésima
monk
idea.
would be a terrible
Al
idea.
principio yo eso lo
At the
percibí
beginning,
como una flecha,
I saw them as
como si él
arrows,
me estuviera atacando.
like he was attacking me.
Pero cuando pude ver
But when
profundamente
I could look deeply,
que todo esto que él estaba
that
diciendo
everything
es
he was
porque
saying
se preocupa por mí,
was because of
porque
his
me
worry
ama,
and because of his
porque
love,
busca lo mejor para
and
mí,
he wanted me to have
me
the
di cuenta
best,
que eso es una
then
bella
I
flor, es
understood
una
that it was a
bendición en la
beautiful
vida tener un
flower
papá
to
que
have
se
a
preocupa
blessing
por
to
mí.
have a father like that who really is worried about me,
Entonces,
who really
esta
cares.
historia del Buda,
So this
de
story of the
Siddhartha,
Buddha, of
no es
Siddhartha,
para que nosotros lo alabemos por sus
it's
poderes
not so
mágicos,
that we elevate
sino
the
para que
Buddha
nosotros
for
podamos
his
ver ese
magical powers,
potencial dentro de
but
cada
for
uno
us
de
to see
nosotros.
that we each have
Todos
this capacity,
tenemos la
this potential.
capacidad de transformar
We're able to
las flechas
transform
en
the
flores.
arrows into
Y yo
flowers.
en ese momento tuve un instante, un momentito
So in this
de
moment, I had
budeidad, porque pude
the
transformar esas
capacity
flechas en
to
flores.
feel enlightenment in that moment
Y
of
una vez que
clarity,
mi papá
transforming arrows into
terminó de
flowers.
compartirme todas las cosas que necesitaba decir,
And once my father had
yo
completed
pude ver ese
telling me
momento
all
como
of the
mi
things he wanted
oportunidad
to
de
share with
expresarle mi
me,
gratitud.
then it was my opportunity
Yo
to
no me
express my
quería
gratitude.
venir al monasterio sin tomarme un
I didn't
momento
want to
para
come
expresarle mi
to
gratitud
the
a
monastery
mi papá.
without letting him know of
Y
my
se lo pude
gratitude.
decir.
And so I was able to tell him.
Le dije que yo sabía que todo lo
I
que él
told him
dice, lo que me estaba
that
diciendo
everything
es
he was
porque se
saying
preocupa por mí
was
y me
because he
ama.
was worried about
Y
me
que
and that he
además
loved me.
yo soy consciente de que
And I
él
was
trabajó
aware
muy
that
duro
he
toda
worked
su vida
very hard
para
throughout
sacar
all of his
adelante
life
a su
in
familia.
order to help and
Y
support
que
his
en mi
family.
corazón yo tengo una deuda de
And in my
gratitud
heart, I have
muy
this
grande que
debt
no
of
voy a poder
gratitude
pagar
towards
en
him that
toda
I
mi
would
vida.
never be able to repay.
Y yo estoy seguro que mis palabras tocaron
And
el
I'm sure
corazón
that my
de mi papá.
words were able to touch my father's
Y
heart.
este tipo de cosas,
And that kind of
independientemente
thing,
de que él no
you know,
comprenda el
independently
budismo
from
o la
whether or
meditación,
not he understood
este
Buddhism
tipo de
or
cosas toca
meditation,
su
but
corazón
that
y le
touching of the
ayuda
heart
a comprender
helped
un
him
poco de qué se
to
trata
understand,
mi camino espiritual.
my spiritual path.
Entonces, me gustaría en este momento
So in
invitarlos a
this
todos
moment, I would like to invite
a hacer una
everyone
pausa,
to take a
a
pause,
detenernos
to
un
stop
instante,
for just a moment,
escuchar un sonido de la campana
to listen to a sound of the
y tal
bell,
vez también contemplar en nosotros mismos
and to maybe reflect within
si
ourselves.
hay algo,
Is there anything
si nosotros también podemos observar y ver
that we would like to
si
observe
mis seres
and see
queridos,
if my
si
loved
sucede que
ones,
fallecen el
if
día de
any of my
mañana,
loved ones were to
me voy a
pass
quedar
away,
con remordimiento de haber
would I
de
have
no haberlo
regrets
hecho o de no haber
for not
hecho
having told them
algo.
something?
Los invito a
I
dejar que esta
invite them
pregunta
to let that
repose
question just
unos instantes en nuestra
sit for a
conciencia.
moment in our consciousness.
regresando a la experiencia que
Coming
tuve
back
al conocer
to
a los
this
abuelitos de mi
experience of
hermano en
meeting my
Francia.
brother's grandparents.
También la abuelita de mi hermano
Also,
tuvo un
the
impacto
grandmother
muy,
of my brother,
muy profundo en
she
mí.
had a very deep
También pude
impact upon
platicar
me.
con ella y
I was able
también me
to
conmovió
chit-chat
mucho
with her.
cómo ella puede
How
encontrar
she was
felicidad
able to find
en las
happiness
cuestiones más sencillas de la
in
vida, como el olor de las
the little
flores.
things,
A mí me
like the smell of the
impresionó que
flowers.
disfrutara tanto
I
del
was
olor
just
de las
impressed
flores
so much
en
by how she could
una caminata que
enjoy
dimos.
the flowers so much when we went on a little
En cierto
walk.
momento, en uno de los días que estaban de visita
In one
la
moment
familia
during
de mi
that
hermano,
visit with my brother's
toda la
family,
familia decidió salir a
all
dar
of the
una
family
caminata.
decided to head
Pero la
out and go
abuelita,
for a walk.
mami, dijo,
But the
yo me siento
grandmother, Mommy,
cansada
she
y yo
said,
prefiero
I'm
quedarme.
tired. I think I'm going to stay
Ustedes
here.
vayan
You
y
guys go.
tomen su caminata.
You guys go for your walk.
Y yo le dije, pues yo me quedo contigo.
So I said, I'm
Nos
going to stay
quedamos
with
y
you, Mommy.
platicamos
We'll chat.
un rato. Y platiqué con ella y
So
me
I chatted with her,
compartió
and she shared with me
prácticamente la historia de su
total
vida.
her entire life.
Y en cierto momento durante la conversación,
In one moment during that
yo le
conversation,
pregunté,
I asked her,
bueno, mami, abuelita,
okay, Mommy,
tú
grandmother,
ya tienes 83
you're
años, me
like
parece, en ese momento.
maybe 83 years old, right?
¿Hay algo en tu vida
Is there
que
anything
siempre
in
quisiste
your
hacer
life
y
that
que
you
nunca
wished you could
hiciste?
do, but you never did?
Y rápidamente me contestó, sí.
And right away she says,
hay
yes,
algo.
yes, there is something.
Yo pensé que me iba a decir
I thought she
que
was going
siempre
to
había
say
querido ser
something
nadadora
like she wanted to be like a professional swimmer or an artist or a singer, perhaps.
Y para no hacer la historia
But
muy
not to
larga,
make this story very long,
resumiendo
I'm
la
going to
historia,
summarize.
ella y su esposo
She and her
trabajaron
husband
mucho y muy duro
had worked
para
very, very
ofrecerle a
hard
cada uno de sus hijos
to be able to
un
offer to their
patrimonio, una
children
herencia.
a
Y hubo
inheritance.
uno de sus hijos que no
And one of their
supo
children
manejar bien
who
el
didn't really
patrimonio que
know
sus
how
papás
to manage
dejaron
that inheritance,
y perdió la herencia
he lost
que su papi y mami
everything that was given
que
to
ellos
him,
le habían dejado.
everything that the two grandparents had
Y la
given.
abuelita se enojó mucho.
And
se
the
enojó.
grandmother, she was very angry.
Entonces, cuando yo estaba platicando con ella,
So when I
me
was
decía,
chatting with her,
mira, yo puedo ser muy amable. Tú ahora estás
you know, I
platicando
can be
conmigo y
kind of
puedes ver que
very,
yo soy muy amable,
I can be very
puedo ser
friendly,
muy buena,
and
pero también
she
puedo ser
said,
muy severa.
you can see that I can be very friendly, but I can also
Y
be
con
very
mi hijo
severe.
fui muy,
And with my
pero muy
son, I
severa.
was extremely severe.
Y mi hijo se suicidó.
And my son committed suicide.
Ese es el dolor más grande
And she said,
de
that
mi
is
vida.
the greatest
Es el
pain
remordimiento
that I have
más
ever felt.
grande de mi vida.
It is the regret, the greatest regret that I've ever had.
Yo estaba muy ocupada
I was
en ese
so
momento.
busy in that moment.
Cuando él perdió la herencia,
When he
yo
lost
trabajaba
his
mucho. Yo
inheritance,
tenía
I was working
muchas
so
cosas que
much,
hacer.
and I had so
No
much to
tenía
do.
el tiempo
I
para
didn't
parar,
have time to
para
stop
ponerme a comprender
and
y
to
a
actually take
perdonarlo.
time to understand and
Ahora
forgive
sí,
him.
ya me retiré.
And
Ya
now that
tengo
I'm
tiempo
retired,
libre,
now that I have
mucho
time,
tiempo libre.
free
Ahora
time,
sí,
so much
ya
free
pude
time,
contemplar
and
la
now I could
situación.
reflect
Ya lo perdoné.
with capacity to forgive.
Pero me hubiera gustado mucho
But I really would
poder perdonarlo
have been able to
antes de que él
had the
falleciera.
opportunity to forgive him before he
Eso
died.
es lo que siempre quise hacer y
That
nunca
is what
pude
I've
hacer
always wished
en
I
mi
could
vida.
do, but I could never do.
Y me compartió muchos detalles
And so she
de
shared with me many
su
details
remordimiento,
about her
de su
regret,
dolor.
about her pain.
Y yo me sentí muy honrado
And I felt so
de que
honored
ella estuviera compartiendo todo esto conmigo,
she was able to
porque
share
es
that
algo de lo
with
más
me.
profundo de su ser.
It's such a
Yo
deep
en ese
honor.
momento sentí una
I felt
comunión espiritual.
a spiritual communion with her, with Mami.
Y cuando su familia, cuando
And when the
los
family
demás miembros de la
returned,
familia regresaron de la caminata
when they
que habían
returned from their
tomado,
walk,
se sorprendieron mucho
they were so
que Mami
surprised
estuviera hablando abiertamente
that Mami was
del
talking
suicidio de
so
su hijo,
openly
porque es
about
algo
her
de lo que
son's
ella
suicide,
nunca
because
hablaba con
she
nadie.
never talked about that with
Era como
anyone.
un tema prohibido,
It was
un tema
a
tabú.
forbidden
Nadie
topic, a
habla del
taboo.
hijo que está
Nobody
vivo.
talked about that son.
Y yo me sentí muy honrado
I felt so honored
porque ella encontró en mí
because
a
she
una
saw
persona que
in me
no la iba a juzgar. Ella
someone
se
who wasn't
sintió
going to
en
judge her.
confianza,
So she felt
sintió la seguridad de
trust,
poder
she felt
compartir
safety,
eso,
security, the
pensando en
capacity
sí,
to
yo
share with
no
me.
la voy a juzgar.
She knew I wasn't going to
Esa
judge her.
es la escucha, el poder de la
That is
escucha
the
profunda.
power of deep listening.
Y yo me pregunto cuántos años
And I ask,
estuvo ella
how many
cargando con
years was
ese
she
remordimiento
carrying that regret
sin poder encontrar a
without
alguien
being
con quien
able
poder soltarlo, con
to
quien
let
poder
go of that,
expresarlo. Y de
anyone to be
repente
able
un
to
día
express it to?
se dan las
And
condiciones
then one
adecuadas,
day,
el
all of the
momento
conditions came
adecuado,
together
la
in that
persona
moment
adecuada, y ella
specific
pudo
where
soltar,
she was able
pudo
to let go,
expresar
able
su
to express
remordimiento.
her
Y yo me
regret.
sentí muy bien
And I
de haber
felt
podido estar ahí
very,
para
very
ella,
happy
de
to be
haber
able to
podido
be there for her,
ayudarla
to help her
a
through
que
that
exprese
moment,
su corazón,
to
a que
express what
vacíe
is
su
in her
corazón.
heart.
Y ella me compartió todo
And
esto
she shared
no
all of
porque yo
this,
sea monje,
not because I was a
no
monk,
porque tenga un respeto especial
not
por mí
because
por el
she had
hecho
some
de ser
respect, a
monje,
special respect for me because I was a
sino,
monk.
creo yo, simple y sencillamente
But I
porque
believe,
ella pudo ver
just
que
because
había un ser humano
she
que la
saw a
escuchó con
human
atención.
being who listened to her with
Y
mindfulness, with
Y
awareness.
eso fue una experiencia que me marcó a
And that was an
poder
experience that
ayudarla
really
en ese sentido.
impacted
Y
me
desde
very
entonces,
deeply. And since then,
papi y mami, los
Papi
abuelitos
and
de mi
Mami,
hermano y yo
the grandparents of my
hicimos
brother,
grandes amigos. Cada
we've
vez que los
become really
veo,
great friends. Every
disfruto
time I
mucho
see
de
them,
estar con
I
ellos.
enjoy so much
Incluso
to
me
spend time
invitaron
with
a
them.
pasar la
And
Navidad
they
el año
invited me to
pasado
come
con ellos
last
y
year
pasé
to
la
pass
Navidad
Christmas with them.
con
And
ellos
so I
en un
went with
momento
them,
muy,
and it
muy
was
bonito.
a beautiful moment.
Entonces, en este momento me gustaría
So in this moment,
hacer otra pausa,
I'd like to do
escuchar un sonido más
another pause.
de la
We're going to
campana
listen once more to the sound of the bell,
y continuar con
and we'll
esta
continue
contemplación, con
with
esta
our
meditación
reflection, with our meditation
sobre ese tipo de cosas que a veces suceden
about
en
these kinds of
nuestras vidas.
things that
A veces
come up in our
podemos decir
lives.
cosas muy duras,
You know, sometimes they're very
cosas
difficult
muy
things.
fuertes,
Sometimes they're very
y no nos damos el
hard
tiempo. A veces no
to
tenemos el
face,
tiempo
and
para
sometimes we don't have
parar,
the time to
así
stop.
como mami, para
Just
parar
as
y
Mommy,
contemplar
we couldn't
las
stop
cosas.
and
Pero
think
hoy
and
sí,
reflect. But
hoy sí
today we
tenemos
can.
el tiempo y aquí y
Today we
ahora
have
nos
the
vamos a
time, and
tomar
right here,
un
right now,
instante para
we're going to
parar,
take an instant to stop,
respirar
to
y
breathe,
contemplar
and to reflect.
profundamente
Reflect deeply
en las cosas más importantes
on the
de
things which are
nuestra
most
vida.
important in our lives.
Para ir concluyendo
To conclude this talk
mi charla del día de hoy,
for today,
me gustaría compartir
I would like to share
otra experiencia más que está
one
conectada
other experience which is connected
con lo que les acabo de
to
platicar.
everything that I just shared.
Unos días después de que
A
los
few
abuelitos de mi
days
hermano
after
dejaron el monasterio,
the grandparents had left
vino a
us in the
Plum Village
monastery,
un querido amigo que con
there
frecuencia
came a very
nos
close
visita en
friend
Plum
who
Village.
comes every now and again to the
Su nombre es
monastery, to
Sergio.
Plum Village. His
Él
name
es
is
de
Sergio.
Portugal y
He's
con
from Portugal,
frecuencia viene a Plum
and
Village.
he frequently comes to Plum
Y es un buen
Village.
amigo.
He's a very good friend.
Y lo vi y me dice,
I saw him,
hermano
and
Duc Tri,
he said,
¿qué hay de
Hermano Duc
nuevo?
Tri, Brother Duc Tri.
Y pues en ese
What's
momento
new?
lo que había de
And in
nuevo
that moment, what had
en mi
been
experiencia
new
y
for
en mi
me
corazón, pues era la experiencia
was
de
this
haber conocido a
experience
papi
of
y
getting to
mami.
know Papi and Mami.
Y toda la historia que les acabo de
And
compartir
so all
a
of this
ustedes
story that
sobre
I just
papi
shared
y
with
de que
you
me decía que hable con mi papá y el remordimiento
Papi,
de
who
mami
asked me
por no haber
to talk to
podido
my father,
perdonar a su
and
hijo,
Mami,
todo
who
eso se
talked
lo
about
compartí a mi
her
amigo
pain of
Sergio.
losing her son.
Y
Everything
entonces
I
Sergio me
explained to
dice,
Sergio.
ay, hermano Duc Tri,
Oh, and so he said to me,
yo
Oh,
no
Brother
puedo
Duc Tri,
hablar con mi papá.
I can't talk to my
A
father.
mí, mi papá me hizo
My
mucho
father
daño.
has done
Yo no
so
puedo
much
hablar con
damage
él.
to
Él me
me.
lastimó
I can't
mucho.
talk to him. He hurt
Pero
me so much.
me llama mucho la
But
atención
it
el
really
hecho de que
draws my
tú hayas
attention that
compartido
you've
esta
been
historia conmigo el día
able
de
to
hoy.
share that with me,
Porque
and that you did it
acabo de
today,
recibir un
because I
mensaje
just received a
en el que
message
me dicen que mi papá tiene cáncer
in which
y está
it
en estado
tells me that
terminal.
my
Está
father
en el
just
hospital en
is
estado
experiencing
terminal.
cancer and is
Pero
now
yo no puedo
in
hablar con
a
él.
state of terminal state.
Yo
But I
no
can't
traté
talk
de
to him.
convencerlo. Yo nada más le
I
compartí
couldn't,
mi historia. Yo no tenía
try to
intención
convince
de
him of anything.
convencerlo
I
ni
just
nada.
shared my experience.
Y al final de esa
But at the end of the
conversación,
conversation,
mi amigo Sergio
my
me
friend
dijo,
Sergio,
gracias por
he said,
compartirme tu historia.
thank you for sharing your
La verdad
story.
es que yo
But
no puedo,
truly,
no
I can't
puedo
do
hablar
it.
con mi papá.
I
Yo no
can't talk to
puedo
my
perdonar
father.
a mi
I
papá.
can't forgive my father.
Bueno,
I said, okay.
pasó el tiempo, Sergio
Well,
regresó a su casa.
time passed and
Pasaron
Sergio went home.
como unas 3 semanas.
And 3 weeks
Y un
later,
día recibí un correo
I received
electrónico
an email,
y es esto que les voy a
and I'm going
leer,
to
a compartir.
read it to you now
De mi amigo
from
Sergio.
my friend Sergio.
Dice, querido hermano Duc Tri,
Dear Brother Duc
pensé que
Tri,
te gustaría
I
saber
thought that
que
you would
hablé
like to
con mi
know
papá recientemente.
that I recently talked to my father.
Él está en el hospital
He is in
y
the
está cada
hospital,
vez más
and
delgado y
each
débil
day
a
he's
causa del
getting
cáncer.
weaker and weaker
Fui
because
a
of the
verlo.
cancer. I went to see
Estuve
him.
feliz de
I was
verlo
very happy to
y
see
él
him,
estaba muy feliz
and
de
he was
verme.
very, very happy to see me.
Inspirado en la historia que
I was
compartiste
inspired by the
conmigo,
story that you shared with me,
también le dije a mi papá
and
lo
so I told
agradecido
my
que estoy
father
con él por
that I am
muchas cosas.
grateful to him for many things.
Creo que esto fue algo muy importante
I
que
think
hacer.
this is something very important to
No
do.
sé
I don't
cuándo
know
mi papá va a dejar
when my
mundo.
father will leave this world,
Y era para mí muy
and so it
importante
was very
verlo
important for me
y
to see
quedarme a
him
solas con él durante
and
2
to
horas.
stay with him
Nos
for at least 2
abrazamos,
hours.
hablamos
We
y
sat
disfrutamos
together,
de estar
we
juntos.
hugged, and we were very
Cuando
happy to
tú
be
y yo
together.
hablamos la última vez,
When you and I were speaking
sentí
the
que
last
eso
time,
sucedió por una razón.
I feel that it happened for a
Y de
reason.
repente, después de Plum Village,
And then,
recibí una llamada de
very
mi
soon
tío
after visiting Plum
diciéndome que
Village,
mi
I
padre
received a
estaba
message from my
muy débil.
uncle that told me that my father was
Gracias
very
por
weak.
compartir tu historia conmigo,
So
hermano.
thank you,
Como
brother, for
ves,
sharing
ha
your story
inspirado
with
buenos
me.
pensamientos,
And so you can see how it's
palabras
really
y
helped
acciones.
inspire great thoughts
Un
and
abrazo
actions.
cálido,
I give
Sergio.
you a warm hug, Sergio.
Y me envió una
And
fotografía
he sent me a picture
de él con su papá en el
of
hospital.
him and his father in the hospital.
Y esta fotografía también la voy a poner
And
en
this
el
photo I'm
altar.
also going to put on the altar.
Entonces, queridos hermanos y
So,
queridos hermanas,
dear siblings,
espero que podamos ver esta celebración
I hope
con
we can
motivo del
see
Día de los
today's
Muertos
celebration of the Day of the
como
Dead
una oportunidad
as an
de
opportunity
contemplar en estas
to
fechas,
reflect on these kinds of
de
things,
contemplar
to
las
reflect
cosas que nos gustaría hacer
on all of the things that
antes
we'd
de
like to
morir
do before dying,
y una oportunidad
and an
también para
opportunity
permitir a nuestros
to
seres
allow
queridos
ourselves
que
and
ya
our
han
loved
fallecido
ones,
que
those
puedan
that have
seguir
passed on,
manifestándose
to continue
a través de
manifesting,
nosotros.
through us.
Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you so much for your attention and for your awareness. Thank you.